Some major breaking news here as it relates to Trump's biggest asset, his handling of the economy.
So breaking moments ago, private sector employment declined pretty sharply last month. And as Matt Egan noted earlier, this could be the only major monthly report on hiring that we get this week, since the September jobs report is expected to be delayed because of the government shutdown. The aforementioned Matt Egan is here with us now. So what do we learn in this report?
Yeah, well, Kate, this is more evidence of a slumping job market, right? ADP said that private sector payrolls fell by 32,000 jobs during the month of September.
There's a bunch of zeros you can't see.
There's a bunch of, there's about 3 zeros that we can't see.
We used invisible ink.
Yeah,
don't worry.
But look, this is a surprise because the forecast was for a gain of more than 50,000 jobs. And this was a double whammy of bad news because ADP also revised lower the prior month of August to reflect a loss of 3,000 jobs. So that means that 3 out of the past 4 months, the private sector, according to ADP, has lost jobs. So where are the job losses? Well, surprisingly, one of the categories that's leading the way down is leisure and hospitality. That's bars, that's restaurants, hotels. That's something to keep an eye on, right? Because if consumers are cutting back, that's where they'd be cutting back first. Also, construction, losing 5,000 jobs. We know that construction has been very much exposed to high interest rates, to the housing slump, to the immigration crackdown. Manufacturing down by 2,000 jobs as well. That's ironic because the Trump administration has these high tariffs. They're trying to prop up manufacturing. But manufacturers, when you talk to them, they say there's so much uncertainty over those tariffs that a lot of them are pulling back right now, and they're actually cutting jobs. Now, ADP measures just private payrolls, right? So this does not tell us what the government, in particular the federal government's doing. But we know the federal government has been cutting jobs massively. Now, this ADP indicator, it kind of has a mixed track record when it comes to predicting the more important monthly jobs report put out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But as you mentioned, we're probably not getting that BLS jobs report on Friday because of the government shutdown. The BLS is dark right now. So that's why investors and policymakers have to rely on this ADP report, and the picture it's painting is not a pretty one, Kate.
The expectation for jobs added in the private sector was roughly 54,000 this month. Instead, the private sector lost 32,000 jobs. This is now the 3rd month out of 4 that private payrolls decreased, and it comes amid a Moody's report suggesting that 1/3 of the states are already in a recession and another 1/3 are economically stagnant. And normally, this private payroll report would be followed by the jobs report that includes government payrolls. But it turns out that Trump decided not to allow the Bureau of Labor Statistics to function during this government shutdown, meaning the September jobs report won't be released. And if you're wondering why the Trump administration might have a vested interest in keeping that report under wraps, well, it doesn't take much digging to figure out why. In August, the U.S. economy not only added an anemic 22,000 jobs, which would unto itself be one of the worst performing job growth months in the last decade, but the previous 2 months were also revised down by a total of 21,000 jobs. That means 21,000 fewer jobs in those months than previously reported. It is the worst 3-month job growth since the pandemic, when Trump presided over the loss of over 20,000 jobs. And prior to that, you'd have to go back to 2010 for a similarly bad performance. In fact, don't take my word for it. Here is a Fox News host learning in real time that the jobs president was presiding over the weakest jobs numbers in the last 2 decades.
22,000 jobs added in the month of August. That was much less than the expectation of 75,000 guys. The July number was revised. I will get to revisions in a moment. Unemployment rate coming in as expected, 4.3%. So that would be higher than July's 4.2%. Again, 22,000 jobs added in August. Let me get you the revisions because this is what everybody is focused on. For June and July together, combined 21,000 jobs lower than previously reported. I'll categorize that now. So you see for June, it was revised down by 27,000, getting you to negative 13,000, and the change for July up by 6,000, getting you to 79,000.
So yeah, if you're wondering why the White House might be falling over itself to hide unflattering data, it's because the trends aren't exactly going in Trump's favor here. Now, going back to the original clip, take a look at this.
Surprisingly, one of the categories that's leading the way down is leisure and hospitality. That's bars, that's restaurants, hotels. That's something to keep an eye on, right? Because if consumers are cutting back, that's where they'd be cutting back.
If you're looking for an indicator of a recession, it is when people stop spending money on leisure. It's also a testament to the gutted state of tourism in the United States, which I find particularly bizarre considering I would imagine that roving armies of unmarked secret police grabbing brown people off the streets and sending them to foreign gulags would be a good thing for tourism, but I guess I'm mistaken. Now, going back to that clip.
Also, construction losing 5,000 jobs. We know that construction has been very much exposed to high interest rates, to the housing slump, to the immigration crackdown.
Now, I'm old enough to remember when the cost of housing was literally one of the planks of Trump's re-election campaign, that housing and rent were too expensive. And not only did he fail to bring those prices down, but he's literally killing the industry while prices continue to surge. And in large part, those prices are surging because when we try to import goods, which are used to actually build houses and build buildings, they are hit with tariffs that Donald Trump is pretending are paid by foreign countries, but which in actuality are paid by Americans. And one more time, back to that clip.
Manufacturing down by 2,000 jobs as well. That's ironic because the Trump administration has these high tariffs. They're trying to prop up manufacturing. Right. But manufacturers, when you talk to them, they say there's so much uncertainty over those tariffs that a lot of them are pulling back right now and they're actually cutting jobs.
Wasn't the whole point of the tariffs to usher in a manufacturing renaissance, to bring those jobs back to America? I ask this earnestly. If Trump is not actually reshoring lost jobs, then what in the actual fuck is the point of tariffs other than imposing a consumption tax on American consumers? There is no long-term benefit. It's just forcing consumers to pay more money. That's it. Trump's big plan to save manufacturing in America was actually just to keep manufacturing overseas, but to make sure Americans got punished for spending money here? Weird how the economy doesn't seem to be responding by booming, huh? And finally, once more.
ADP measures just private payrolls, right? So this does not tell us what the government, in particular the federal government's doing. But we know the federal government has been cutting jobs.
So this is only private payrolls, not government payrolls, but as was mentioned, the government is currently cutting jobs. And now that we're in a shutdown, knowing full well that Trump is looking for any excuse to fire people who he deems unnecessary, those numbers are all but guaranteed to plummet even further. Meaning whenever dear leader Trump deigns to allow us to actually see the latest jobs report, if ever that day arrives, it's virtually assured to reflect yet again the dismal state of his economy. And what makes all of this even more ridiculous is that we were sold on this idea from Trump.
The golden age of America begins right now.
The golden age, right. Either he was lying or didn't understand that what he meant by golden age was lost jobs, less income, negative growth, and a likely recession. Take all the time you need with that one. In fact, Aaron Ross Sorkin spoke to a Republican Majority Whip Tom Emmer, and you are going to be knocked on your ass when you hear his justification for why the economy is suddenly going to go gangbusters despite extending the same failed Trump-era economic policies from before.
Why are we currently not getting 2.8% growth today with the assumption if the CBO is at 1.8 and the administration's at 2.8, and part of what we're talking about here is extending the tax cuts that are already in place. And yes, you're going to capture no tax on tips, and maybe that'll drive some of this. But what is going to get you to the 2.8 number?
It's Donald Trump. Donald Trump and this legislation. Keep in mind, we've had 4 years of disaster under Joe Biden. Donald Trump has only had a little less than 6 months to try and fix this thing, and already you've seen enormous changes. In the CBO, by the way, 1.8% growth is what they projected over the next 10 years. This country has never had less than 2% growth in any 10-year period. So be careful of the numbers that these insiders put out, because bottom line is we've seen it all throughout history. When you give Americans more of their hard-earned money, when you give them more freedom to make new things happen, they not only improve their own lives, but the rising tide lifts all boats. And that's what this country's all about. And that's what's going to happen with this legislation.
Who could have guessed? The silver bullet, according to Tom Emmer, is Trump. That's it. Just Trump merely existing is going to send the economy skyrocketing and jobs booming and wages rising and men will run faster and jump higher. It is impossible to claim that you are not a cult of personality for Trump when you say shit like that. But the reality is that Trump is already in office, and only since he's been in office has our economy struggled. The guy loves to shit on Biden, but Biden presided over the most successful economy in our lifetimes. Over 16 million jobs, a 50-year low unemployment rate, a record high stock market, 800,000 manufacturing jobs. Trump would kill for those numbers. The guy is literally losing jobs and has the audacity to claim that the president who added the most jobs in history is somehow a poor steward of our economy. If I was a Trump voter, I would not only be furious that this business genius can't stop destroying the U.S. economy, I'd be even more furious that his sole priority while doing it is gaslighting us about Joe Biden. And yet, that's all Trump has. He doesn't actually know how to govern, he only knows how to attack people who do know what they're doing. He'll spend all day bitching about Obama and Biden and Hillary and Jerome Powell and AOC. Trump is the president. He is in charge. He's got the reins. Maybe a little less time complaining about how he is the victim and a little more ownership of responsibility over the ways in which he, as president of the United States, is failing the country. Trump is leading the party of personal responsibility. It is about time he started taking some. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.